Let's start with this. It looks so simple, doesn't it? Just a simple arrangement of atoms. But this one molecule, wow, it held the promise of conquering everything people worried about: fatigue, depression, even fear itself. It was a promise that would end up changing everything.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of history's great and, frankly, disturbing contradictions. You have the Third Reich, a regime that was obsessed with this idea of absolute purity. But behind the scenes, well, the reality was a society that was completely saturated with drugs. And I mean everyone, from its factory workers to its soldiers on the front lines, all the way up to the Führer himself.
So how did this all happen? We're going to break it down into 4 parts. First, we'll look at how a so-called miracle drug completely took over the nation. Then, we'll see how it became a literal weapon in the Blitzkrieg. After that, we'll get into the Führer's own personal drug habit. And finally, we'll see the desperate last-ditch efforts to find a chemical solution to all their problems.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Part 1, a nation's miracle drug, and the incredible promise of something called Pervitin.
So, here it is, Pervitin. It was trademarked back in 1937 by a pharmaceutical company right in Berlin. And what's inside this little pill? Well, its active ingredient is methamphetamine. A chemist named Dr. Fritz Hauschild developed it. He looked at Germany at the time, a nation just obsessed with this idea of renewal, of getting its strength back. And he basically thought, I can create a pill for that. And boy, was he right.
And this stuff, it got everywhere. It literally became the people's drug. It was marketed as the answer to everything. Feeling down? Tired? Take Pervitin. Secretaries, actors, writers, factory workers, you name it, they were all using it. Truck drivers on those brand new Autobahns? You bet. It was even sold as a popular diet pill because it just killed your appetite. And get this, they even put it in chocolates. They were called Hildebrand chocolates, and each one had nearly 5 times the dose of a single pill. Unbelievable.
And the advertising campaign was just relentless. You can see it right here. They sold it not as a dangerous drug, but as a totally normal, essential tool for modern life. It was a stimulant for your psyche and circulation. The whole idea was to make it feel as normal as having a cup of coffee in the morning or drinking a Coca-Cola. Just a simple daily boost to get you through the day.
And this is where you see the massive, glaring contradiction at the very heart of the whole regime. On the one hand, you have the official ideology. The Nazi Party publicly slammed drug use, calling it a sign of Jewish and degenerate culture. Hitler himself was sold to the public as this pure, ascetic figure who wouldn't let any poison touch his body. But what was the reality? The entire country, population and military, was becoming one of the biggest consumers of meth in the world. The nation's so-called high performance was completely artificial, pumped up by a chemical.
Okay, so you have this popular domestic pick-me-up. But it wasn't going to stay that way for long. Now we get to how it was transformed from a consumer product into an indispensable weapon of war.
35 million. Just think about that number for a second. That's how many tabloids of Pervitin the German military ordered just for the invasion of France and the Low Countries in the spring of 1940. 35 million. And you can see exactly why the military was so interested. Here's a report from a panzer division during the invasion of Poland. It reads, "Everyone fresh and cheerful, excellent discipline, slight euphoria, and increased thirst for action. After taking 4 tablets, double vision, and seeing colors." I mean, the drug basically just switched off all the normal human responses: fatigue, fear, hesitation. It completely transformed the psychological landscape of the battlefield. Of course, the military wanted to justify using it, so they brought in science. This chart here is from a study by military physiologist Dr. Otto Ranke. He gave military cadets Pervitin and, what do you know, the chart seems to prove that it magically eliminated fatigue, compared to the guys who got nothing. This was all the proof they needed to say, see, it's an essential tool for the modern soldier.
And this is where it all came together. The entire strategy of Blitzkrieg, the Lightning War, was built on incredible speed and shock. The push through the Ardennes forest was the ultimate example. Starting May 10, 1940, the German tanks just didn't stop. For 3 straight days. How is that humanly possible? Well, it isn't. Not unless you chemically eliminate the need for sleep. By May 20th, they'd reached the English Channel and trapped over 1 million Allied troops. But then, on May 24th, Hitler issued a very mysterious halt order.
And that halt order is what enabled the miracle of Dunkirk. It gave over 340,000 Allied soldiers the chance they needed to escape. To this day, historians still debate exactly why he did it, but it's a pretty big clue that maybe the rationality of the person making the decisions at the very top wasn't as solid as his tanks were.
Which brings us to our next part. We've seen the foot soldiers, now let's look at the Supreme Commander himself. Let's talk about the Führer's regimen and the addiction right at the core of it all.
If you want to understand Hitler's physical and psychological decline, you have to know this man, Dr. Theodor Morell. He was Hitler's personal physician, and he became known as the Reichsmaster of injections. Starting around 1941, he was giving Hitler a constantly escalating series of shots, and Hitler trusted him completely.
And thanks to Morell's own notes, we know what he was giving patient A, which was his code name for Hitler. And the list is just shocking. Daily vitamin and glucose injections, sure, but also injections made from animal glands, liver, heart, pancreas. A powerful opioid painkiller called Eucadol, which is essentially oxycodone. Swabs of pure cocaine for ear and throat pain. Pervitin, of course, for when he needed to be alert. And dozens of other pills and preparations. Just imagine, the man making these world-altering decisions was doing it through a fog of all these powerful drugs.
So what was the effect of all this? Well, it became profoundly apparent to anyone who saw him. This is a quote from an eyewitness describing Hitler in late 1944. He was an aged, almost depleted and exhausted man who had to make do with what was left of his strength. The speech was unnaturally loud and tended toward a shout. The charismatic leader was gone. In his place was a trembling, exhausted man whose body and mind were just ravaged.
In the final phase, as the Reich began to crumble and defeat was staring them in the face, their reliance on pharmacology became a desperate and, frankly, depraved search for a new chemical savior.
As the war effort grew more desperate, so did the drug programs. To keep things under wraps, the regime started using codes for a whole new generation of combat drugs. You can see it in this document here marked Secret Command Matter. C stood for cocaine, P for Pervitin.
This search led them to DIX. It was a literal miracle drug cocktail in a pill. Each tablet contained 5 milligrams of cocaine, 3 milligrams of heroin, that's meth, and 5 milligrams of Eucadol, the powerful opioid. This wasn't about fighting fatigue anymore. This was about trying to create a super soldier, someone who could be pushed far beyond any known human limit.
And this was the kind of miracle weapon that drug was designed for. These were suicidal missions and one-man torpedoes. The pilots were expected to operate for days on end with no sleep, sustained by nothing but these experimental drugs, with their natural instinct for survival chemically stripped away.
But how do you test a drug like this? Well, this is where the story gets truly depraved. The Navy collaborated with the SS, and they used prisoners from the Sachsenhausen concentration camp as human test subjects. They gave the prisoners D9 and then forced them to march on a special track for up to 60 miles without rest. They were given high doses of the drug and even a new cocaine chewing gum to see how long they could endure. Many of them died during what the SS cynically termed extermination through labor.
In the end, this bid to create a state of total intoxication, from the front lines all the way to the Führer's bunker, was just a delusion. As one historian puts it, Germany, land of drugs, of escapism and world weariness, had been looking for a super junkie, and it had found him in its darkest hour in Adolf Hitler.
And all of this leaves us with a final, sobering question. It's one that echoes far beyond the confines of this particular history. When a society decides to look for a chemical solution to its ideological and military problems, what are the ultimate costs?
If you liked the content, please consider to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.